would like to share with you one graph that actually opened my eyes. And I use it, I call it the healthy hydrogen tool, because it really helps to look at this whole climate action from a single perspective. If I take an action today, how much will it contribute to lowering the overend goal of reaching this 1.5 degrees that we speak about, or maybe even go downwards? If we look at CO2 reduction, where a lot of the initiatives are focusing on, then the Climate and Clean Air Coalition actually said, well, if we would only account for CO2 reductions, we would end up higher than if we look at equivalent CO2 reductions. Now, what are equivalent CO2 reductions? That is particles that are emitted in the air, which are not directly CO2, but indirectly CO2. The most examples are black carbon, methane, and hydrofluorocarbons. And since we are trying to ask here the question on what is the most credible way or the best way for transport, let's look at what is the contribution of black carbon and what is black carbon towards global warming. Well, when you burn a fossil fuel, and I represent it usually like this, a chain of carbon atoms with hydrogen atoms connected to it. When you burn that, in the very best way, when you burn it, every one of these carbon atoms becomes hooked up to oxygen and it becomes CO2. But very often, it's not just CO2 that we get a lot of soot. Now that soot might be visible, but in many cases it is invisible. And this invisible soot actually comes for 51% of household heating and household energy, and 26% of transport. In fact, it depends on the region. In Europe, we have roughly 50% of black carbon emissions due to transport and 50% due to household heating. In some other regions, like in Africa, it might be more like 75-25. Why is it important that if we burn a fuel or if we burn a biomass in an old-fashioned way and we have this black carbon, we already saw it has a huge impact on the global warming. Just to give you an idea, one single atom of these would be equivalent to 460 to 1500 CO2 molecules in a couple during its lifetime. Now that's a factor that means if we are able to reduce this black carbon in the atmosphere, we will have an immediate effect on the curve. And that is why when we take climate action that uses or that looks not only at CO2, but at all the emissions, and in particular black carbon, we really help to contribute to slow down global warming. Now, if you're not convinced, you should look at black carbon emissions in your company. Let me give you a couple of good reasons why you might want to take a look at it. These black carbon particles, they also make that the formation of cloud forming is more difficult. It has an impact that it lowers the yield of vegetation and of food. It also, as we already saw on the slide from the previous speaker, it has a huge impact on the melting of our ice. And last but not least, these little invisible particles have a direct impact on our health, on your health, on the health of your family and your beloved ones. 25% of these particles lead directly to lung diseases, and 43% lead directly to lung cancer. Often less understood is that also 24% is leading to brain damage and to strokes and are related to heart diseases. So very good reasons to combine credible climate action with healthy actions, I would say. So let's go back to our company from the beginning. How credible is this company, DataTech? When Mr. Patrick Janssens attended the first climate parliament, he actually was there more out of politeness. His company was a IT company and they were doing carbon offsetting programs. So they said, well, it's okay. We are doing our thing. We are climate neutral. And that's it. But as he was listening to these climate entrepreneurs like you are now today in this conference, he started reflecting and he got a spark. He said, well, I don't think I'm doing enough. I think I could do more. So being an entrepreneur who's very action oriented, what he did is he immediately created his own climate parliament inside his company. He made a small video and asked to his employees, listen, I would like to help our company to become really CO2 neutral in 2030. Who would be willing to help as a volunteer for this initiative? Now, what was truly amazing is that within minutes that he had published that little video on his intranet, 35 employees volunteered. These volunteers, besides their regular jobs, could develop different initiatives. The first initiative, which is an obvious one, was to say, okay, how can we reduce as employees our consumption of energy? How can we save energy? Because the less energy we produce, the better it will be and the more credible it will be. So they came up with an energy saving box, which was given to every employee in the company to help them save energy at home and make plans to get the homes of the employees less energy, using less energy. The second obvious action was, of course, a zero waste program within their company and at home. They looked also into the way on how their employees were going to the company and how they could green their initiatives, if they could work from home even before the COVID crisis kicked in, how they could green the car park that they had. But the true challenge was when they looked at their core business as an IT distributor, how do we green our transport? How do we help our people in our network to become greener? They first started by looking at how can we make the packaging more green. Then they started at looking how can we make the last mile more green. So how can we make sure that when people buy our products, when they enter the city, instead of delivering them with polluting trucks, we will actually deliver them through companies that are carbon neutral. And right now, and that was the reason they approached me, they are looking together with the local bus company if they could perhaps share a hydrogen fuel station in the neighborhood and help set up financing for these transporters and find more companies that are willing to buy from a greener transport company to speed up the greening of this fleet. Now, as you can see, this is a website, it's in Dutch. It's not made by a marketing agency, it's made by students and the employees themselves. Each one of the persons that you see here is an employee from the company having a different job, a customer representative, someone from HR, a technical person, who's taking this initiative personal. But what was even more surprising is when I was there at this climate conference, these people were actually there. They got a day off. They were allowed to learn and educate themselves better so that they're able to drive more initiatives with more people in the company. As you can see, there is no logo of any climate initiative here. The question I now have to you, now that you have been listening to me, now that you have a little bit of an understanding on how critical it is to look at what I call the healthy hydrogen tech, to look at the global picture. Are the initiatives that this company is taking really helping to get onto the green path? Do you believe what I have said is true and is authentic from this company? If you do, please let me know. You can send me an email through my LinkedIn account, or you can write it now in the chat, so we can take a look at it in our room. But the question to me is, do you believe this company is credible? Yes, no, or would you like to investigate it yourself a bit further? I really appreciate you organizers of this conference for letting me share this incredible journey of being part of a climate parliament, helping companies to set up climate parliaments. And I hope that maybe through this presentation, I have sparked many people here to replicate these initiatives, because they're extremely good at educating yourself, your employees, your family, and everyone who might be in the supply chain.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Now, I would like to invite the audience to continue this amazing conversation next to Alexandra, and not only, because we're going to have as well Mohamed Kayad, who is the academic coordinator of the Law and Economy and Management Department at the Sorbonne University of Abu Dhabi. So if you would like to join them, you can go to the breakout room number 1. The panel will take around 20 minutes. And again, remember that you can always come back here to the main room. Remember, Mohamed and Alexandra, that you have a different link to go to that room, and that you need that specific code to access. Marcin already sent it to you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, great. To the others that would like to stay here, I would like to give you a 5 minutes break. So we will meet here at 12:18. See you here in 5 minutes, okay? No more, because after that, actually, we're going to have Ikmat Rengshoek, who is the CEO and founder of We Don't Have Time. And then we're going to have Rainer Monet, who is the company owner of Value Balance Institute. Remember that we're going to continue with the block 4, effective stakeholders management, creating the right sustainable ecosystem. So see you in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, Mohamed. He's not yet then.
This is still the general room. You need to go to the breakout room, Alexandra. Okay, I hope that everyone in the audience is coming back to the room. I will give you just a few seconds to be ready. Dear Ingmar, if you would like to join us with your camera, and let's see that it's working fine. Ingmar, can you hear me?
I'm here.
Super, great. Okay, so I would like to welcome again everyone to our UTech Digital Climate Action Summit and Expo. Join our next speaker, who is Ingmar Rens, sorry for the pronunciation, Renshap, who is the CEO and founder of We Don't Have Time. He will be presenting a very interesting hot topic, that is, what is the role of the stakeholders in saving the environment? Ingmar, the microphone is yours if you would like to start now.
Thank you so much, Maria, and thanks for inviting me to this amazing conference. I would like to start a little bit to explain my own background and how I entered the climate space. And I actually used to work in finance industry. So my background is from finance, where I was running a communication consulting firm in Sweden, where we helped financial institutes and public traded companies to communicate and have a dialogue, a stakeholder dialogue with investors. And what surprised me when I started doing that many years ago was that big corporation, they took not just the big shareholders, the big investors' opinion seriously. They also listened very much on everyone's opinion, even if you were a very small shareholder. And if you have an opinion, if you asked questions to the company, they took it very seriously, and it often went right up to the management level of that company, because they know that a small shareholder could today have a very big influence through social media, and that could have a big effect on a company's share price. And you want to have your investors, keep them happy. You want to, how to keep them happy is to listen to them, to have a dialogue going on. So that was what I was doing previous. We don't have time for many years, but I don't do that anymore. And the reason for that is because of my children. This is my 3 children, And when I became father for the first time, I started to read about the future. I started to think in longer time period, and I learned about the state of the planet. And I got so shocked about the climate crisis, because 5 years ago, when I started We Don't Have Time, people were not really aware about that the climate is changing so fast, and that it's not happening in the future, but it's happening here and now. The crisis is something that is going on. And if we don't stop it, it will be very, very serious consequences, not just for our children, but for everyone that is alive today on this planet. So that made me think, and I wanted to contribute by using my skills on how to create engagement with stakeholder dialogue. And that's the idea behind We Don't Have Time. Instead of communicating about your investment and financial, we are helping everyone to have a dialogue between about how to solve the climate crisis. And I have a short film that shows what We Don't Have Time is all about and how we are doing things that I would like to share with you right now.
We believe by rewarding climate solutions and warning all the polluters, we will make it profitable to save our planet and super expensive to destroy it.
We must now zoom in on the quality and implementation of plans, on measuring and analyzing, on reporting, transparency and accountability.
We want to be better, and that's why we are open for climate dialogue.
We want to know what you think, and so that we can improve.
Let's give climate love to those that have the solutions. And let's send climate warning to those that needs to change.
I invested in We Don't Have Time because actually I agree, we don't have time.
We're trying to reduce CO2 collectively.
If we don't act urgently and quickly, catching up later won't work.
The drive to net zero is the growth story of the 21st century.
We had about $350 billion of direct subsidies and tax expenditures, tax breaks given to fossil fuels.
Of such an enormous mobilization of business, finance, civil society, and science all gathered here.
We have halved our own emissions between 2012 and 2017 and are now at the 70% reduction.
SSAB has decided to be the first steel company in the world to offer fossil-free steel to the market in just a few years.
There's lack of clarity, and it just feeds greenwashing and delays meaningful action.
We just have to go quickly. We have the technology. We don't have to develop technology.
We're going to create this huge wealth transfer from energy producers, who represent a tiny minority of people, to energy consumers, who represent all people.
We are in a climate emergency, and we are very far from where we need to be.
Get ahead of the curve or you're going to lose.
I was able to attend one demonstration that kicked off at Kelvin Grove all the way to George Square, and we had a lot of activists.
What I feel that I can bring is a young audience that maybe doesn't know what to think about climate change.
What is happening here, negotiating, it's so wrong from our perspective. You don't put a price on your mother.
Now, personally, I don't believe the fossil fuel industry should continue to be allowed to operate the way it's been operating for the last several decades.
We want to bring a voice to all the new solutions, the new ideas, the new entrepreneurs who are out there trying to kind of make a break and create this new climate economy.
They're setting a great example, and there's lots of other big businesses that should follow their example.
I really want to urge everybody just to be thinking more about land use and not just electrifying vehicles to, maintain the environment that got us here today.
They want to ban
the word burgers, sausages, and steaks from being used on vegan and vegetarian products.
Tell them what they do so that they will be encouraged to do more. And together with the community or users, we share this to millions of people on social media. So this is getting noticed.
Let's bring in Shweta Chakrabarti tonight, risk and behavioral scientist and president of U.S. operations for We Don't Have Time.
As the name says, we don't have time.
ستوكهولم مؤسس منظمة ليس لدينا الوقت. We don't have time. السيد إنغمار رونسبورغ.
Joining us for more as We Don't Have Time's Nick Nuttall. Nick, welcome to the program.
And Nick, about this counter, speaking of numbers.
This is a clock that shows you how much money has been spent on fossil fuel subsidies since the beginning of the COP.
We have a climate crisis and we're still subsidizing the industry which is causing the crisis. I mean, it's completely dumb. I'm a finance guy. It makes no sense whatsoever.
$2.5 trillion went into subsidies for fossil fuel. That's a definition of insanity.
Still, this is a positive. It's the first COP decision that actually mentions coal power or fossil fuel subsidies.
We need to communicate climate action, because if only a few people or a few companies are doing climate action without communicating it to others, we will not solve the climate crisis. So we don't have time. Why does companies want to have a stakeholder dialogue? What's in it for them? I will say everything is in it for them, because we are now leaving the fossil fuel-based economy behind us and entering the renewable economy. And this is something that is new for everyone in the business community. Everyone struggles on how to transform their businesses. And it's a really great way to get advice and get better results by involving everyone, involving all the stakeholders, everything from your supply chain to your customers, to your employees, to your investors. Everyone needs to work together on this in order to succeed. And many companies want to succeed with this. That's the positive news. United Nations have an initiative called Race to Zero, and that's an initiative that is joined by thousands of big companies around the world that have committed themselves to net zero targets. And today, more than 50% of the global GDP belongs to companies that have committed themselves to net zero targets and that are part of the Race to Zero. So the ambition is there. And it's also other things going on, and that is that we're moving from a shareholder to a stakeholder economy. In the United States, there's a big business organization where all the big businesses in the US are member of. It's called the Business Roundtable, and they have existed since the beginning of last century. And in 2019, for the first time in history, they have changed the purpose of a corporation. It's not about giving return on investment to your investors as the main objective anymore. No, now you need to listen to all stakeholders. You need to deliver to them all, employees, customers, and society with large. So this is a big transformation of the whole society. And we have seen it quite recently with the war in Ukraine, where more and more businesses are listening to the society and exit Russia because they want to contribute. It's maybe bad for the business, but it's good for the society to take a stand. So this is a big shift on how businesses are operating, and we're going to see so much more change in this area. But we have a problem, and that is all those net zero commitments. They are so far mostly pledges and not actions here and now. So we need not just a dialogue, we also need a system where we are giving rewards to those that are doing the action here and now, and where we could
pressure those that are not acting too fast. And that is what We Don't Have Time is all about. We, on our platform, our members create climate reviews. So if they see something, businesses or a world leader that are doing something great for the climate, they are giving them a climate love as a review. And by that, rewarding that businesses so that more businesses want to do more of that. And if they're doing something bad, they give out a climate warning to pressure them to change, to act for the climate in a better way. So we are using stakeholder dialogue together with public pressure in order to make change. And the way our platform works is that it's quite similar to social media. Companies have a profile where you can follow and see what they're doing for the climate. You can engage with them with a stakeholder dialogue. You can communicate them. They will respond. We will actively contact the company you want to reach and have them to engage in the dialogue. And you can also see, is this a company that other people thinks are doing good stuff, or are they mostly doing bad stuff? You can see their climate rating. We also have a big broadcast channel where we are inviting the leaders that are acting and to have a stakeholder dialogue live. Today we have 60,000 members from over 150 countries, and it's very much people working in the space that wants to solve the climate crisis that are our members today. It's business leaders, it's investors, policymakers, engaged consumers, global activists, but also journalists and media. They are using our platform to get informed about what solutions there are out there and to engage in stakeholder dialogue for the climate. So far, we have 200 companies and organizations that are using our platform actively, and they have promised to be open for climate dialogue. That means that if someone gives them a climate review on our platform, they have promised to respond and answer that review. So the companies you see in this slide, they are all open for climate dialogue. You could give them good feedback and bad feedback, and they will respond to you. And what we also do is that we are very, very active on social media. We have a social media reach of over 86 million per month. So the dialogue on We Don't Have Time platform is not a closed dialogue, it's a public available dialogue. So that means that many people sees what's going on and what's happening. So if you're getting a reward, that will be spread and shared widely, so other companies will be influenced and wants to do the same or even do more. But if you're getting criticized, people will know that as well. And this means that companies can't ignore the dialogue. And so far we have gotten answers from everything from presidents to corporate leaders like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg has responded to reviews on the We Don't Have Time platform and engaged in a dialogue. I also think that almost all big oil companies have responded to reviews on the platform. So even those that are not doing the right thing, they care about the public opinion and they want to answer because no one wants to get criticized. And the way our platform works, I have some few minutes left, so I wanted to just showcase you by doing a demo. If you go to wedon'thavetime.org, you can sign up for our platform. It's totally free, and we plant a tree for everyone. And this is how it looks. You can read about companies that are answering reviews. Here's a climate warning someone has sent to IKEA. 250 people agrees on this review. It's shared on social media, so even thousands of people also see this is happening. And IKEA could and have answered this criticism by giving their explanation and their facts about the issue, etc. And for IKEA, this is something that is very good because they don't need to answer to 250 people in 250 mails. They could just answer on the We Don't Have Time platform, and suddenly they have a dialogue with 250 people in a structured way. So it also saves a lot of time. And that's important because that means that the companies that are involving and answering in our platform, the people behind is often people that are doing the job. It's not an assistant level, it's management level that are doing the communication. Exactly how it usually works in the finance when people talk to the finance industry. So go to wedon'thavetime.org and you can discover a lot of content, a lot of climate love, a lot of articles and discussion about the climate. We are doing a lot of broadcasts. You can watch more than 190 hours of content from Glasgow. You can hear interviews from policymakers, corporate leaders and activists. And you can really engage in a global dialogue about the most important issue of our time, the climate. And I would also like to invite all of you to one of our climate dialogue broadcasts we are going to host together with European Commission. It's a climate dialogue with Frans Timmermans that we will host April 1st. And everyone is welcome to join this. It will happen from Stockholm, but you can access it digitally. And everyone is invited to ask questions to the Vice President of EU Commission about the Green Deal and the way European Union thinks and acts for the climate. So our platform is really about accessing the leaders and have them to involve in a dialogue, a public dialogue, where everyone is welcome and everyone is needed. So this is what We Don't Have Time is all about. So you will find me on We Don't Have Time if you want to contact me. So please sign up there and check it out yourself.
Thank you so much, Ingmar. If you're interested in joining Ingmar in the discussion with Caroline Frederick, Managing Director of Stakeholder Reporting, and Giacomo Santangelo, Senior Corporate Officer of the European Climate Pact at CDP, you can go to the left side of your screen. You will find the breakout room number 2, and you can join them in that separate room. I would like to remind the audience that if you would like to come back to the main room, we're going to be here waiting for you, and we will continue with the next speakers. Ingmar, I believe that Marcin sent you the link with the code that you can use to access to that break room, okay?
I hope so. I will figure it out.
Okay, Marcin is here with us, so he will be contacting you. Don't worry.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, it's in a private chat, so you can check it on the left, private chat from me. You can.
Perfect. I just click the link and we'll see you there.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ingmar. So now is the time to welcome to our second speaker, René Monet, who is a company owner of Balance Institute, and he's going to be talking to us about which sustainable values should be taken into accounting and value balance. Rainer, I would like to give you the microphone now. If you would like to say hello to the audience, the floor is yours. Rainer, can you hear me? I can see that you are here. Okay, hi.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. The microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, fine. Many greetings from Freiburg in Germany. I will share my presentation now.
Sorry, Maria.
Yes.
Maria, can you, yeah, now he's a presenter. Yeah, okay.
Yes, don't worry. Rainer, if you look down in the middle of your screen, you will find the option to share your screen. Okay, just
yes,
look in the middle.
Now it's active.
Wait, because you turn it off. Let's try once again, please.
Okay.
Okay, it's loading. Let's wait. It's wait a little bit more.
Just a second, I need to.
It is still loading. Let's just wait a couple.
I see it. I see it already.
Oh, okay.
So
it's made
already.
it.
Yeah? Yes.
Okay.
So you can start, Rainer, with the
Okay.
presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Value balancing is a topic for me today, and how to account values. This presentation.
Sorry, can you make it full screen, because we see it
Okay.
not a
Okay.
full screen.
Just a second. So it's better now.
Or yeah, it can be like this, or a presentation. Just play. Yeah, right here.
It's okay.
Great.
This presentation is probably not easy to understand, because we leave all the paths of thinking. The answer of the question of the presentation subtitle in one sentence is: a value balance sheet is nothing less than the attempt to identify, analyze, and record the monetary value of values that are not or or taken into account in conventional balance sheets. Problems can never be solved with the same mindset that created them. And we should make everything as simple as possible, but not simpler. These both quotes are from Albert Einstein. Complexity results often overwhelming human feelings. Unsolved problems can result deep stress. We need a new system for recording and evaluating our highly complex corporate reality. Companies are the anchor point for change in a big scale. Decisions made by us can be hardly reversed by our children and grandchildren. Companies rank very poorly when it comes to truthworthiness. 3 to 4 from 10. We live in times of provocations of sustainability. Crises, catastrophes, and reports are taken on increasingly frightening proportions. In relation to this, your requirement learning success is implementation and implementation efficiency are marginal. We have known about the basic problems and trends for more than 5 decades right now. There are large gaps we have to face. Traditional balance sheets show large gaps and deficits. With the introduction of the value balance sheet, agile companies face the dynamic and global requirements of our time. In the past, companies have asked themselves more about how sustainable and resilient their company is on financial basis, that's the most, and not about what I can do to ensure the future viability of our resources. The supplement of companies' perspectives in their balance sheets is moving with new values, effects, and resources. So human, natural, and social resources such as skills, knowledge, innovations, patent values, raw materials, and or cooperation become an integral part of the value balance. This brings automatically compliance, because it's realistic, complete, and correct. Value balance measures future viability, sustainable use of our resources, and prosperity in one system. A new form of balance creates increased awareness. The value balance is an intelligent system that brings economy, ecology, and sustainability into a new relationship. The newly found word value balance is it all. It connects two great concepts that have not been connected in this way before. This new term offers answers to urgent and unsolved ecological, economic, and future-related questions. Values play a central role in people's life. We have well over 100 values in our civilization. Standing up for values is worthwhile. Every employee brings their own personal values to their work. But it's even more important for a company that all common values are lively. They aim to ensure that employees and the company are ideally doing well economically and social. Everyone can feel like a part of a whole. Modern companies are interested in how values are created and, above all, how values grow. With the value balance, we get a new sensorium, organizational development, and that becomes measurable through its own method. This is very important. In the areas of ecologically, sustainability, cultural, social affairs, efficiency, and data, they precisely record and track the values and added values. The balance of values change the awareness by optimizing the transparency of entrepreneurial activity. This gives you a more complete, crystal clear picture of a company performance and growth. Participation of employees in responsible corporate development. Constellations and compositions of values are the artificial mission for the future. The company can start with 7 to 12 values from the 3 layers to get into the value framework. All layers are meant as a metaphor. Sun, planetary, and earthly values are sorted in these layers. A total of 42 company values, 35 are accountable. The 7 sun values are not accountable, but very, very necessary. Dignity, freedom, equality, humanity, wisdom, courage, moderation. We recognize that the realization of planetary values means an investment in human, social, and cultural values. The promotion of human values in the company is worthwhile, and it does so at many different levels. Planetary values are more flexible and moving forward. For example, awareness and development, creativity and enthusiasm, motivation and charisma, joy and attention, altruism and common good are examples of these planetary values. We now move on to measuring the pulse of an entrepreneurial practice. We use another image, proximity to Earth. Earthly values relate primarily to the value of competence, and implementation. The earthly values are characterized by the fact that they have a very close effect on entrepreneurial work. It is important to determine the substance of the values. For example, competence, development, efficiency and effectiveness, leadership management and employees, future viability, transparency, and communication are examples for earthly values. I wrote a book. Maybe you can see it here as well. You all can read about the story of the value balance. For me, it was a journey of discovery to a new land that you can believe me. Unfortunately, it's written only in German. If anyone knows anyone who spent 5k euro for a translation, that would be great. Many foreign people asked already for it. What is the resource? The word is related to source. We take something from nature or humans and transform it into values, monetary values. Human knowledge and competencies and values are not valued in our balance sheets today. Motivation, for example, is more measurable than we even think. Traditionally thought, a value only becomes a value when it results in income. It can also be reduced by further expenses. Expenditures from employees who improve processes or quality are missing in conventional accounting. Social responsibility for and outside the company is not taken into accounting. Measure and bookkeeping effects and profitability are not to be done by companies in general by now. What is the impact of modern leadership or cooperation or transparency? How much value creates this effort? The world of data. The new digital technologies replace money as an information carrier. Data values are monetized primarily when companies are sold. This was observed in 2014 when Facebook took over WhatsApp. The calculated equivalent of $30 was paid for one user. Many of us remember this. Using the data is an example. It can be seen how spiritual things are realized and manifested in reality. Data is part of an identity, the human side of data. Value balance is also a new leadership management tool, Leadership 5.0, based on real facts and figures, 360-degree perspective of all relevant business areas. Resources such as nature, people, and culture are assets. Equity increases. The value balance can be used in a granular, scalable manner. Mineral resources, for example, are raw materials. They form the basis of our business. Who do they belong to? Who has the right to extract and promote these? Do we urgently need new answers to these questions? One answer to many of these questions regarding nature goods was provided by the Dasgupta Review, the Economist of Biodiversity in 2021. Dasgupta and his team at the Royal Society clearly worked out that man and woman is only a part of nature. Human economies are embedded in nature or its nature. Since the beginning of industrialization, we have created and used them at least like a self-service shop. In reality, the natural basis is also to be understood as an asset, and we humans should do our best to learn to become smarter asset managers. This is from Dasgupta. According to the Potsdam Institute for Climate Research, in addition to the uncontrollable processes in orbit, we are subsequently dealing with a larger number of different tipping points, as we heard from Jörg in the morning. You all may know the overshot day. Year by year, we need more days of our budget. What are the consequences and who cares about it? We need to take the thresholds resulting out of our business into accounting and balancing. The accounting of tomorrow includes a realistic depiction of values and resources. Sustainability accounting based on the raw material is part of balance of values consumption, use, destruction, and renaturation of natural resources are booked in values in the right place and recorded in the balance sheet. The responsibility for the raw materials used remains within the company. KPIs are necessary for measuring details and facts. What companies does or spend and invest in the futurability can take part of a new resilient bookkeeping. This builds credibility and transparency. The value balance can't avoid criminal acting, but it makes it easier to foster green and change washing. Change washing, new word. What you can measure results in the success or loss of a company balance is an integral part of existing reporting systems whose values become an integral part. Look at SDGs, ESG, GRI, EcoGood, integrated reporting, CSR. We need more comparable systems and corresponding system of taxation with understandable, justified laws. These are built on real values and on detailed figures, followed by international guidelines for balancing in the new way. Also, we need a new sense of property and companies' responsibility to that, which takes care about our common goods and our resources, or better, the resources. A better world needs better concepts that we have today. We are founding an institute. We are founding an institute, the Value Balance Institute. The institute sees itself as a thinking place for Socratic dialogue based on common sense, as a platform for holistic, practical research work in the natural science and humanities. It does not stick to traditional ways of thinking, nor do we immediately follow every new trend. We support individuals as well as companies and organizations who want to deal with values in the first step and then with their animation or only with their accounting in the second step. In our real laboratory, we accompany you from person to person in search of knowledge. We want to positively promote the acquisition of knowledge and further development. Thank you for your attention. Great compliments also to the UTAC team. Hopefully, I produced many question marks in your mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rainer. I'm sure that that's what happened after this presentation. Indeed, I believe that the audience would like to join you in the discussion that is going to continue in the room. I just want to remind you all that this is a discussion that we're going to have with Rainer, but as well with David Lammers, who is the Deputy Director of the Corporate Engagement Europe at CDP. So you can find on the left side of your screen the breakout room number 3, and you will be able to join them for a discussion that will be taking around 20 minutes. Remember again that you can always come back here to the main room, okay? Breakout room number 3. Now I would like to give you a 5 minutes break if you would like to grab a coffee, and we will meet here again. Yeah.
And for Rainer, Rainer, you can find the link in the private chat here in the system. So please check it on the left.
Okay. Thank you.
So we can just jump immediately to the room. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Martin. So as I was saying before, we're going to have a 5-minute break. So let's meet here once again at around 10 minutes. Okay. In 5 minutes we will meet here again. See you soon. Rainer, I think that Marcin sent you the link over the private chat.
Yes, I see it, but it doesn't work.
You need to put the code. He sent you as well the code, right?
Now I don't have to. I go into. Just wait a second.
Marcin is going to contact you. Don't worry. He's going to help
Yeah.
you to get inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
I'm very well, Maria. It's I hope the tech is working. I don't.
It's working. It's working.
Okay, very
Let's
good.
wait just a couple of minutes because we're doing a 5 minutes break, but we are going to start at 10. Okay, 10 minutes.
And in terms of the screen sharing, Maria, I had a working session with Marcin earlier just to. Oh, I think I've got it already. Is that right?
Yes, I can do the right, so you will be able to look at the sharing option.
Okay, let me do the try and get myself organized.
Okay, let's see if it works. Try to share the screen with me.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get into presentation mode and then okay, then I need to go back there and share. Hold on. Let's cancel that. Try again. It's on this screen.
Maria, can you hear me now?
Yes, Martin, I can hear you well. Hi.
Good, hi. I don't want to go too early or something. I just want to say I'm here.
Great,
And I'm
Martin.
also slightly worried about the technology.
Thank you so much. No, it's good to have signs of life. So thank you for that.
Good. My camera seems not to work, but that may be because I'm too early.
Yeah, maybe it's because of that. We will fix it. Don't worry.
Okay.
See you soon. Thank you, Martin.
And just one question. I share my screen, right?
Right. I need to give you the rights. So don't worry. We will do everything on the right time.
Perfect. Yep. Fine.
Okay,
I'll
thank you,
mute
Martin.
again.
See you soon.
Nice to meet you, Ian.
Yeah, likewise. See you later.
Okay, just 3 minutes, Ian, and we will start, okay?
Okay, lovely. So just for the launch, Maria, will you do an intro, or I try and just do a very quick introduction
Yes.
myself, or
I'm just going to do a short introduction. So I'm going to say your name, your position. I'm going to say the title of the topic that we're going to be presenting. And after that, I will give you the microphone so you can take it from there. Okay?
Excellent.
Okay. 3 minutes to go.
Very good. How's it gone so far? Everything gone smoothly, or?
Yes, it does. It does. We have amazing panelists before, and each one of them with a different background. So I believe that this is one of the most important things during today's conversation, that we are approaching this issue from different perspectives. So it has been very interesting so far.
No, great. I mean, I'm sorry I missed the earlier sessions because I've been stuck in meetings literally until 5 minutes ago. So it's always nice to, as you say, get the other perspectives of the other presenters, because that also can inform what you talk about yourself, what might be interesting to the broader audience. But hopefully this is of some interest to everybody. But we'll see.
For sure, for sure. And as I was saying to the others, we are here just giving a brief introduction of what is the problematic today. But this is something that must continue, not only here, but as well in different scenarios, in digital talks, and understand how we can join forces, because the impact will be greater if we work together. So
absolutely. Yeah, fully agree.
Okay, so I would like to welcome the audience again to the main room. We are about to start with the block number 5. Remember that our focus here is green funds and finance, pushing money into the right direction and making sustainability affordable. So welcome you all again here once again at the room. Now I would like to introduce the next speaker, who is Ian Robertson. He is Executive Director of Invigors, who will be presenting a very interesting topic, and it is solutions and innovations for the climate protection, where to find funds. So Ian, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria. And first of all, good afternoon, everybody. And thanks also first up for the opportunity to talk to such a diverse audience this afternoon. So yeah, I think you had a pretty good introduction in terms of the topic that we're going to talk to for the next 20 minutes or so. Before we get started, maybe just 20 seconds on who Invigors are, because you perhaps don't know us as a business. But we're a specialist advisory business that focuses exclusively on the asset finance industry. So that includes OEMs, it includes a lot of the financing companies in the industry, and also the other players in the ecosystem, which perhaps will make more sense as we go through the presentation. But anyway, that in essence is who we are. So I also wanted to say on the first page, the focus of this discussion is customer financing rather than financing necessarily of the OEM businesses. So I just wanted to make that point up front. So I just need to move to the next page, which gives a bit more detail on what to expect, hopefully in the next few minutes. So I thought it might be helpful, first of all, to try and define what might be in scope in terms of equipment types. And then from there, because I think the topic is broader than just financing, I thought we might get into some of the other key aspects that also drive behavior within customers. So I've called that affordability drivers and value creation. I've also linking that to resource optimization, because I think they're all related themes. And then, as promised, we'll get into the customer financing models themselves, talk a little bit about key success factors, and then talk about some of the actors that are in the environment. And we'll spend a bit of time talking about risk, because that's a key theme, particularly with the new technologies and new solutions and go-to-market models that we're already seeing in the space. So how do we make sure that the risks can be managed? And we'll have a short session on how potentially to balance those risks between the manufacturers and the financing partners. So if we move forward. The next slide, as promised, is it's a very high level overview, and it is not meant to be exhaustive or complete, but just to give a sense of the types of equipment that we see falling into the domain of the equipment finance industry that they could potentially finance. I've deliberately put this up there because a lot of people, when they talk about sustainability and climate change, people immediately picture windmills and solar farms and the renewable sector, which is understandable. But as I'm sure the audience here also understands, there are many, many, many more aspects of equipment that have a very positive role to play in respect of the climate challenge that we're facing. So I wanted just to emphasize that point, because there are opportunities that are close to home for traditional equipment finance companies. And perhaps that's something that the industry will pay more attention to, and certainly the clients that we work with are starting to put more focus on these topics. What I would say in general, though, that there can be quite significant capability gaps and knowledge gaps, which again are putting a slight brake on the provision of financial services solutions to end customers. So it's very important that we recognize those and we try and do our best to manage those and mitigate those as we move forward. The last point, which I again wanted to just say very briefly, is around, why is financing important? I hope everybody recognizes the scale of the challenge that we're facing, and what we certainly see, not just in the domain here around energy transition and climate protection topics, is that the ability for people to pay on a periodic payment, be that monthly, quarterly, or whatever frequency of payment, really removes, in many cases, a big hurdle to people migrating from one level of technology or type of equipment to another. And so the equipment finance business has a pivotal role, I believe, in terms of helping OEMs and end customers make the migration from legacy technologies to the new positive impact assets. So the next slide is a little bit more granular. It's also very busy, so I don't intend to go through every aspect on the slide. But as I said, I wanted to just look at some concrete examples as to how value is created for an end customer, and how can they get the most affordable and appropriate solution, and then how can they best use those resources. Now, I caught the end of the last talk, and I think the resource optimization is an absolutely central point, and it actually comes off the first box here as well. So equipment choice is something that I would say historically has not been in focus from a resource optimization perspective, and certainly not from a climate impact perspective. That is getting greater focus, I'm pleased to say. But clearly that has a major impact. Choice of equipment first up, and that's not just looking at it from a, let's say, an energy or resource consumption perspective in life. It's obviously in the manufacturing processes. And the other thing which I highlighted here, which again I think is often somewhat overlooked, very important to understand what's actually needed. And it's not always the state-of-the-art equipment, it's the state of need. So that's an important concept that we need to constantly challenge people around. The other pieces that I've really highlighted here in particular are on the future value of the equipment, and that links to circular business models. And the equipment finance industry is particularly well suited both to take care of equipment and make sure it's well looked after in its first customer life, but it's also extremely well positioned along with OEM partners to make sure that equipment has a second life. And that has multiple benefits. Not only is that an additional sale opportunity for the OEM, potentially with a different type of customer base that they might not have been able to reach in the past, either geographically or segment-wise, because the affordability was challenging for brand new equipment. But it also has clearly a massive impact on the carbon footprint of the production of equipment. So extending the useful life of equipment and getting, let's say, a 10-year cycle out of equipment rather than a 7-year cycle has a dramatic effect both on resource consumption in terms of raw materials, but obviously in terms of production. There are more advanced topics that are also on this page, so I believe you probably have access to the pages after the event. So feel free to look at those at your leisure. The one thing I would maybe finish on this page is really around the importance of data and measurement, and that's increasingly becoming a really valuable additional piece of let's say armory in the business model of both OEMs and finance companies, particularly around topics like preventative maintenance and care and condition monitoring, to make sure that the equipment is used in the right fashion and it's used in the optimized manner again, so we get, at the end of the day, the most outputs for the same level of inputs. Now, bear with me. We're moving now into the realms of finance, and again, some of the terminology might not be familiar to everybody. So, what I've tried to show in this picture is two things, at least. Along the x-axis at the bottom of the chart, you see different types of financing products, and indeed starting from a product sale, so not with finance attached, all the way through to full utility contracts where there's full flexibility and cancelability within the offer. Along that spectrum, there's an evolution of complexity and embedded services attached to each of the different types of financial go-to-market model there. And just in terms of terminology, I just spotted EAS, stands for Equipment as a Service. So again, going right to left, you see increasing complexity in terms of the risks and the go-to-market model. A richer service offering for the end customer, and that goes somewhat hand in hand with the items that you see at the top of the chart, which relates mostly to either the OEM directly or their channel partners servicing spectrum. So increasingly we see bundled solutions where not only is it a hardware go-to-market model, but you also see the richer service offerings provided as one singular bundle. So that was a very quick picture of, let's say, financing products. What I wanted to show in this picture was some of the arrangements that OEMs can make with third-party financing companies. Everything that's within the grey box on the chart kind of falls into the category of exploiting third-party funders, so working with external finance parties directly. The elements on the right-hand side, the captive division and the integrated captive, they can potentially be financed indirectly in terms of debt provision or securitization of the book that they build themselves, the portfolio that they build. But I suspect for the audience that we have today, the items are more interesting on the left-hand side, which is how to find parties who can take your equipment to market and put a financing solution around it. So as I said, you go from the fully outsourced model on the left-hand side, which is where you potentially work with a single third party. And that's a model that lots of people use. That's a kind of traditional vendor finance model. you also see increasingly and very commonly in structured finance domains, the joint venture type models. So that's where you get a lot of complexity. And I should also put on this chart special purpose vehicles, which you also see coming increasingly to the fore in these types of structures. And then you have other variants on similar themes to the vendor finance model, where you have a lease desk where the manufacturer will work with multiple funders, or where you have what's called a wholesale model, where an original equipment manufacturer might essentially go to market with their own paper, but then they sell those documents and the underlying receivables and contracts, cash flows, off to third parties. And so you see a range of different manufacturers who've adopted different models, and these do flex over time. The reason one party goes one route rather than another are several fold, and can be topics from purely one of scale, strategic importance of financing in the business model, any financial constraints around revenue recognition and balance sheet, internal cost of money versus third parties, and aspects such as what's the risk appetite of the market to provide the types of solutions that the end customers want. And we'll come back to that shortly. So if you are in the market for a financing program, what do you need to look for? What are the typical success factors? Again, this is not exhaustive, and I won't talk to every dimension that we have here. It's probably important to key into a couple of specific ones. Geographical coverage is a fairly obvious one for people who are not particularly familiar with the equipment finance world. It's not so common to have funders who will provide for an OEM on a multinational basis. There are actors who do that. They tend to be specialist in certain equipment classes or industry verticals, and they have specific likes and dislikes, and that leads into the discussion of risk, and we'll come to that in a moment or two. So for anybody who's looking for an OEM, I would say have a good think through what components you have in your existing business today. Is it very clear what your go-to-market model is? Do you need third parties to effectively go out and originate sales leads for you, or have you got that capability and financial competence within your business today? And there's many other considerations. We haven't talked about end of contract management, but again, for an OEM, who takes responsibility for remarketing the equipment, remanufacturing or reconditioning the equipment? Is that something that you want to manage in-house? And increasingly, the trend that we see is that is something that the OEMs themselves want to take care of. Again, it's got very strong sustainability benefits. And keys in absolutely to the circular economy topics. So again, I maybe made the wrong assumption, but I'm assuming the audience isn't full of third-party finance companies, more OEMs and end customers. So I just tried it in the next picture to try and give an indication of some of the considerations that a third-party finance company would have, either when they approach a transaction, or when looking at a programmatic opportunity with a vendor. I think it in essence is quite simple. It's a question of what's the scale of the business opportunity, and how long will it be there for? Against what are the risks inherent in the go-to-market model? So particularly as it relates to a lot of the sustainability markets, there are dimensions that are uncertain, as in all markets, but particularly these, are there subsidies in play? Are they going to be there forever? If they disappear, what's the potential impact of that? What's the likelihood of technology moving to the next generation, and where potentially would that leave any existing investments? And then there are very specific points that a vendor finance company would look at in terms of the go-to-market model and how scalable and efficient is the go-to-market model. So that's on the left-hand side. What commercially would they see as, let's say, the costs and the revenues that could be won? On the risk side, I've highlighted a few on this page, some of which are common to all financing transactions, like credit risk. But I've highlighted a few because they're not necessarily different, but they may be more sharp and larger in the new asset classes and equipment classes. So technology and obsolescence risk I just talked to. The operational and service risks is also something. It might be that it's a brand new actor that's come into the market with a great product and a great solution, but they don't have a strong balance sheet. They're not an established brand. If you are relying upon them to provide operational activities and servicing, which is often the case, what would happen in the event that they disappeared? So that's a question that has to be answered. And so in terms of the assessment from a finance company, they want to look at the operational and maintenance due diligence around any new go-to-market model. I'll very quickly make a few points on asset-related risks. So that straddles both residual and credit risk. In the sense of the residual risk, it's a very important component in the go-to-market model because it's a very important part of the financing solution. It has a massive impact on pricing. And because it's often new technologies, it's uncertain as to what the value of the equipment would be in the future. And so that's an unknown, which is difficult for some people to grasp, but it's got a major impact on pricing. And similarly, in terms of any asset going into default, what would the impact be if a customer goes into bankruptcy? How much could be recovered in terms of value from the equipment? I'm just mindful of time. I've got a couple of slides to quickly run through. So this page very briefly talks to some of the risks I just addressed on the previous page and some of the techniques that are available to manage those. From left to right, you're really going from low volume individual transactions to the right, more programmatic or large opportunities. Residual guarantees, probably quite obvious from the description. That's a structure that can be put in place either on an individual or a programmatic basis to cover part or all of the residual value risk that might be assumed in a transaction. Loss pooling is a concept where you take a certain proportion of a transaction and effectively put that aside to cater for any potential losses that might occur through a customer going into default or residual risks not being realized. And I guess one of the things that I just wanted to emphasize here is, and it ties into the next page, it's really important to recognize what the risks are and to try and allocate those risks to the people who are most capable and most experienced in managing those risks. And so the last page is really a summary of who else, in addition to the parties we've talked about, might play a role in priming and driving these new investments. So at the top, we've got, the obvious candidates, so the OEM providing the equipment, potentially them and some service providers, remarketing specialists who might be involved in the recovery and sale of equipment. The block in the middle is really all the potential finance types, discrete finance providers who could have a role to play. And then last but not least are the other ecosystem players, the data providers, valuation specialists, who help the people bearing the risk to take them in the most controlled manner and be aware of the best ways of mitigating that and having the best picture of what the risks are that they're addressing. So I think that's a good time to draw a line under the topic. I should maybe have left it on the last point around the specialist advisors. Our role in life as a business is to help people navigate this territory. So if anybody has any questions or rush through something too quickly, please join us in the chat room, and we're very happy to take questions and try and answer what we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian. So as you were saying, indeed, If the people from the audience would like to get deeper into this topic, they can join you in the breakout room number 4. Ian is going to be next to Jonathan Rosler, who is a researcher associate at the University of St. Gallen. Both of them are going to be talking about this topic for about 20 minutes. So I would like to invite the audience to go to the breakout room number 4. In your case, Ian, Marcin send you a link and the code to enter the room, okay?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you so much, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the moment to introduce you to Martin Hiller. He is the founding partner and the director of Will Water Partners, and he's going to be talking to us about how investment funds can drive the green transition. Dear Martin, hello, can you hear me? Wait, you're on mute? Okay,
now I'm unmuted, I think. Yeah. Hi,
Well-
Maria. Nice to meet you.
The same. The microphone is yours, Martin.
Okay. So I need to share my presentation. I'm wondering how to do that.
So I just give you the rights. The only thing that you need to do right now is to look in the middle down of your screen.
Oh, yes, I see.
You see the option?
Okay.
Let's wait.
Let's see. Not clear where my PowerPoint is.
It's in the, but do you already click over the sharing option? You need to click over that option. You will find it in the middle of your screen below. Just look below to the right. There is this tiny symbol that is to share your screen to the audience.
Okay. So sorry for that. I click on the sharing button, which is to the right of the video button.
Okay.
And then I have 3 options: entire screen, window, and Chrome tab.
Choose the window. That will be the right.
You can choose entire screen.
Yeah, but my PowerPoint is open, but it does not show up in this system here. No, I can't find my presentation. I've sent it to you, Martin. So
okay,
if you wanted to show it, then that could also work.
Okay, I will do it. Just give me 1 minute.
Okay. Sorry for that.
Don't worry. Let's just wait a couple of seconds and Martin will be back with the presentation.
Yeah. That was very interesting, Ian. Now he was really into project finance in detail. I thought that was a good setup because I'm going a slightly broader. Maybe while we're waiting, I can just introduce myself quickly.
That would be great, okay? Martin. Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So my name is Martin Hiller. I am a founding partner and director of Will Water Partners. This is a consultancy based in Vienna, Austria, and we are focusing mainly on 3 SDGs: climate, energy, clean energy, of course, and health. And one aspect that interests us especially is frontier investment or impact investment, early stage investment, and the change of the finance sector towards sustainable investment. And that's what I'm gonna talk about. Personally, I have worked for a number of years, 8 years, as the Director General of REAP, Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Partnership, which is an international organization based in Vienna that is a specialist in blended finance models, not just devising them, but actually implementing them in reality. And that's where I came into the green investment area to a stronger extent. So, Martin, thank you very much for the slides. What I will talk about is a little bit where this whole idea of green finance and green transition in a financial sense actually comes from. I'll go into some of the details, and then I'm going to go specifically to the situation in Europe and what is actually happening at the moment and coming in the very near future. Martin, is there any chance for the PowerPoint?
Marcy, we cannot see it anymore in the presentation.
Let's just wait a little bit because I was kicked off. Wait a second, one more time. Okay, now probably you see my screen.
Yeah, here it is.
I was kicked off, I don't know why, but basically now.
If you can get it into presentation mode, then.
Yeah, we are here.
Yes.
I will have to click by myself, so you have to.
I'll tell you when I'll say click very impolitely, but I'll say click when I ask you to click. Click. Yes. Thank you. The whole idea of sustainable finance really started with corporate social responsibility back in the 70s. Social contract between companies and society was the idea, and it developed slowly, but a major boost for different types of investment came in the aftermath of the financial crisis in 2008, when regulations for banks and investment funds were tightened very much. And so people started to look for new opportunities. And one new opportunity that really started to take off then was impact investment. Impact investment, meaning that I invest, that I of course have a financial component to my investment, but that I also look at other impacts that I can make with my investment. And I want to say at this stage something about risk. Ian just before talked a lot about risk, and that's what investors, of course, are very keen on. They want to see the opportunity, but risking the money that they invest is a major concern. That's quite obvious. From a climate change point of view, you would define risk differently. You would say we need to move into new areas, into new technologies, into new practices as quickly as possible, into low carbon practices, because the risk of not doing so is too big. But an investor will say, no, I don't like this new bit. I want to stay with the things that I know. I'd rather finance another coal power station because I know already exactly the numbers, how much it costs, how it works out. All the things that Ian presented will be known and will be easy to handle, whereas with a new project, they're not. He even pointed to that. And now we come to the question how to, on the one hand, steer investment, on the other hand, make it more secure, and we come to the whole question of ESG. Next slide, please. ESG is at the core of sustainable finance. And of course, when you start on the right at the bottom, it has to do with money and sustainability. And it has to do with these ESGs, which lead investment to something that has more than just financial considerations. It has all these three, and it's worthwhile just to spell them out for a moment. The environmental one with CO2 and climate relevant emissions, biodiversity, and impact on nature, pollution, but also the social, human capital, labor relations, human rights, equality issues, and the governance question, management, employee relations, executive pay, but also, for instance, equal pay in the company. All of these different elements are suddenly coming together. And beyond the financial considerations, which are already complicated enough, they add a whole new layer of complication. Click. So we've been talking in preparation to this presentation. We've talked about a definition for sustainable finance. This is the one of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is pretty much the shortest that I've found. But of course, there are many around. They all go in the same direction. It's really about ESG at the core of financial services. Next. And it is now important to see that sustainability isn't anymore an empty sheet. We have a global framework with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which break down into 144 targets. And while we'll probably not achieve all these goals by 2030, or most certainly not, they present an excellent global framework for monitoring what's happened in the sustainability space. How sustainable is the planet? And underneath that, we haven't got a huge amount of legal work yet, although for very specific questions we do. But we have a huge number of private actors, often industry-led or NGO-led, that have been working on breaking these sustainable development goals down and make them operational for purposes of implementing sustainability. I'll just mention those 4 here, but there are many more, of course. Science-Based Targets Initiative is really helping companies to bring their carbon targets onto a scientific, science-based footing so that they can defend them in boardrooms and towards investors. The Carbon Disclosure Project, CDP, I won't talk much because somebody from CDP is going to be on the panel afterwards, but they have been an eminent player in helping companies and sometimes also pushing them towards disclosing their climate risk. The principles for responsible investment do exactly what their name says. It's a conglomerate of almost 4,000 financial players now, banks, investment funds and others, who actually have united to develop exactly those principles to find out how can investment actually, without losing its financial acumen, really move the needle towards a constructive engagement around in the ESG space. And the gold standard, last not least, is the high quality certifier for global goals. Started off in the carbon space, but today has already expanded to a number of other global goals, and is a high quality mark in terms of standards and standard setting. Next. You see there are many players acting, but it all has been voluntary so far. And why would private finance therefore be interested? Why would they act? The signs are on that we are on a journey from voluntary to mandatory, and certainly in the EU we are already quite advanced in this journey. So that's one point. But another interest is the interest in long-term stability. Over the last 15 years, one has seen sustainability funds performing rather better than other funds, and especially more stable. And so there's an interest here. Thirdly, there have been a number of early starters since the beginning of this century, or even before. And these early starters show the way. They're starting a track record. Track record is showing and is easing the way into this new green finance space. Fourth point, credibility of certification. Certification schemes, there are many, but there's a certain maturity now of certification schemes. Some of them have been around for 20 or 30 years, especially in the environmental space, but also think about fair trade, etc. And the credibility of certification is increasing. Next. I would like now to go to frontier finance, because when we talk about sustainability finance, about financing sustainability actions, that is still a frontier. That is still something that is new, and it happens in frontier markets. Those frontier markets can be really innovative things here in Europe, or they can be frontier markets in, let's say, where I have more experience in certain countries in sub-Saharan Africa or in Southeast Asia, or in Latin America. It's frontier markets are there where you have essentially for this market not yet an open situation. It's not yet known. It's not yet easy to finance. And you will mostly find SMEs and startups working in those markets, especially in low and middle income countries. And not all of those are outside of Europe. I would have said 5 weeks ago, I would have mentioned Moldavia, but now if and when it comes to the reconstruction of Ukraine, that will be an enormous frontier market with a low income or middle income situation. So it's inside of Europe too. And the companies that we are talking about, because it's sustainability finance, are SDG related products and services. That's what they offer. They do measure impact up to a point because that's one of their sales qualities, of course. And the problem that these companies have when they start, even established companies that start a new project or a new range of services, is that in low and middle income countries, it takes a long time to come to financial maturity. And there is what is called the missing middle. There is a time between starting a project where you maybe have own funds or you get grants, and the moment where you actually get a financial return that allows you to really go to a bank, and the bank will actually then agree to lend you money. And that missing middle is the biggest problem for new businesses in new areas, and the biggest challenge also for their sustainability once they have started to take off. So this financing the missing middle, that's in a range between maybe 100,000 or even less to maybe 10 million, but mostly not even that. It's not a huge amount of money, but it's the money that helps to really change the course of the economy overall by helping new businesses, cleaner businesses to take off. Ian talked a lot about risk. One risk that he interestingly didn't mention is the currency risk. But when you work in sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, then the currency risk is huge. And anybody who has investments in Russia these days knows everything about the currency risk. Currency risk is one of the big impediments, and buffering that or working with the currency risk is again a rather expensive issue. And another pitfall for frontier finance are return expectations. A new paper out by the International Finance Corporation, I will show a graphic of them in a moment, says we have investigated impact investment in 2020 and talked to a number of companies, and they talked about a return expectations of 20% when they were going in at market rate, or at still around 12% when they call it an impact investment, which for a company that's operating in let's say in a not affluent market is a big challenge. And these return expectations can kill many very successful companies that go into that too early. I've seen this happen and again, unfortunately. What we need to fill these gaps is a combination of different types of finance, starting with grants and continuous grants, and then blended finance solutions, as they're called, that may have one commercial or semi-commercial impact finance component, but also a grant component, or a component where a grant could be turned into a loan if everything goes well. So there are many different models here that would help to deliver, to help to grow the company to a level where they eventually can work fully commercially. Next. This is just an overview of the impact market. That's the IFC overview. And just on the bottom right, you see that the overall impact investment market measured by the IFC using their criteria is in 2020 was at 2.3, almost 2.3 trillion dollars. So that's already a sizable market, but just think that the overall investment market annually in the same year was somewhere, if I remember correctly, between 60 and 70 trillion dollars. So it is still a relatively small amount. Next. And the other critical question when you think about all these SMEs and startups and all the others is how can larger amounts of money go into such markets, into such spaces? And that is the other critical question that investors and everybody who works with investment and development is actually facing. How can we actually really grow this quickly? Because a larger, let's say a larger pension fund or any kind of larger institutional investor will deal in the multi-billion sphere. This is something that takes to get used to a little bit, but they cannot deal with tickets. I wrote here below 100 million. Many will say not below 500 million. That's it is not something that they can do, because it would mean that they have invested so much money in tracking and supervising and monitoring all these small tickets that they cannot afford, because they need to keep the cost for the monitoring of what they're doing relatively low. So there is a need for bundling smaller projects into larger blocks, and that's very easily said, but it's extremely difficult to do. It's a job that investment banks do normally, but also they don't go for very small projects. But they have specialists who can structure financial vehicles. The key here is, what can I rely on? What can I trust? And so when you go into poorer markets or into new markets, where there is no capacity yet at affordable rates to capture the information and data and create clearinghouses for these, so that one can assume that the information and the data are reasonably reliable, then it becomes hugely difficult for anybody to lend money into this space. Public finance is called here. They can deliver guarantees, the matching funds, other securities. There's a whole plethora of instruments again, but this is not all. It needs to have, you need to have a market that is well enough developed to have capacities where the market is observed, is monitored, where you see how the overall market is developing, in which the company acts. And that is just sometimes, unfortunately, a matter of time to evolve. Next. I just want to briefly point that despite everything I've said, the problem remains the problem. This is the share of total final energy consumption. So that's really the energy that was used in 2009 and in 2019. And you see that the share of fossil fuels is exactly the same. And so the climate change problem is continuing and not at all, not in the least abated, although the yellow bit, the modern renewables, have actually increased considerably, but they have not cut down the fossil fuel part. Next. And so it's time for a transition, high time for a transition. Next. And I come to Europe now, because what's really interesting and actually heartening in a way is that the European Union and the European Commission have actually taken a pretty massive step towards moving to a better place with the European Green Deal. Next. Within the European Green Deal, you have the European Sustainable Finance Action Plan, which is the part that I would like to concentrate on now. And essentially, this action plan has 5 components, if you want. The first one on the top is the taxonomy regulation. It is essentially a green classification system for economic activities. We're going to go into that in more detail. The second is the regulation for disclosures that companies need to make regarding to their sustainable activities, and disclosures the banks need to make regarding to the amount of sustainability activities in their portfolios. And then we have work on benchmarks, which I'll leave aside for now, and integration of sustainability into the practical side of the work, such as risk management and other things, which I'm also not going to talk much more about. And importantly, the fact that finance advisors now need to advise their clients on sustainability when they advise them on finance. That is a legal obligation already. Next. And to go into the sustainable finance taxonomy, which has been discussed quite a lot in the last few months, for reasons I won't go into now, I'm more interested in the setup, how it's actually working, because the decisive step of that taxonomy is that it defines for 13 sectors in the EU what can actually be declared sustainable and what not. And that's a huge step compared to the greenwashing attempts that some of the sustainable funds that you see running around now have, where you have just excluded a few sectors, but there's no real work done on understanding what sustainability means for each of the sectors. In the taxonomy, this work has been done. And it's based so far not on everything in ESG, but just on the E in ESG, the environmental objectives. And it defines 6 environmental objectives: climate change mitigation, adaptation, water and marine is number 3. Number 4 is transition to a circular economy. Number 5 is pollution control and pollution avoidance. And number 6 is protection of nature and healthy ecosystems. And the principle is that your activity, project, or investment is going to be sustainable if it advances at least one of these 6 considerably and does no significant harm to all of the others. And that is very clearly defined within the legislation. Next. So it's an EU-wide classification system. The clients, so it means the companies and the banks, need to review their sustainability, the sustainability of their projects and plans. That is a directive that's probably going to come into force next year, and it will target about 50,000 companies. The banks also need to report already this year on the share of sustainable investment in their portfolios. And there is also a stress test now for the biggest banks on climate exposure. Next. You have mandatory standards, and they are on a legislative basis, so they are actually really law now. And they differentiate between sustainable, unsustainable, and in transition activities. I've talked about the other things, but the last point here is really important. The capital cost. The idea behind this is to take what I, at the very beginning, talked about the risk appreciation, to take that risk appreciation into a new area. And if sustainable activities, sustainable ventures, mean cheaper money from the banks, because that's what the banks actually want to have in their portfolio, whereas unsustainable activities have a higher risk and therefore become more expensive, then you start to see money moving into sustainability. That's the idea behind this whole concept. Next. This is the compass. I jump over this now because I have a time problem, but there are 13 sectors. Go onto the EU taxonomy compass and look at that. It's actually not that complicated. It's quite easy to work. Next. I think it's very important to take this new legislative approach as a white space for innovation and as an opportunity. Just think data, batteries, hydrogen, whatever is in terms of new technology. There's a lot of really interesting opportunity here. There is a risk for banks to go on to invest in stranded assets. That's why they will start, and they are starting to be interested to increase their share of sustainable investments, and we'll see this extend to value chains. The social criteria of the ESG within this legislation are being developed and will also come in at some stage. And I think the good news is that good monitoring and good data support high quality. So people find that while it's a bigger effort to do this at the beginning, it also helps their businesses and also the bank business quite considerably further down the line. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martin. I want to invite now the audience to continue this conversation in the breakout room. Indeed, Martin is going to be next to Daniela Ehrman, founder of Tupan Ecosystem, as well Michael Mattress, director of the Found Nature, and co-founder of the Climate Positive. As well, they're going to have Jeremy Caracas, who is the senior account manager at CDP Europe. And you will find this breakout room on the right side of your screen. The room is number 5, okay? This panel will take 20 minutes. And with this, I have to say that we're almost reached to the end of the event. Martin, to go to that room, you only need to click over the link that Marcy sent it to you, okay?
Okay, he sent that through the internal thing, yes. Or
Martin, I will send it now to you here in the chat, okay. In the private chat. Okay, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria.
So yes, as I was telling you, everyone, we are arriving to the end of this event. I hope that the topics that were presented today were very interesting for you. And of course, I can imagine that our speakers are very exhausted, but they are really happy of having this opportunity to be here with you and share all this knowledge and insights of what is happening today. We're very happy that you were with us, that you want to be part of the change, that you want to act now with us. So we hope that these presentations, our meetings, will be a place to create networking, to understand how we can join forces and how we can do that next step. Remember that this is the decade of credible climate action, okay? Thank you so much to the European Technology Chamber. Thank you to the Climate Action. Thank you so much to our partners, Go Blue Now, Prime Computers, United Nations Climate Action Initiative, CDP, and the whole team that has been working for several months to prepare this amazing event. So thank you so much for your effort. Remember that if you would like to understand more about the Chamber and about what we do here at the Climate Action Alliance, you can always contact Marcin Kiel or Jürgen Tugen, and we will be happy to provide you more information. So thank you so much. Now I would like to give the microphone to Jörg. And again, it was a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. What a day, what a summit. And thank you for already thanking some of the people involved in making this event a big success, at least that's how I see it. And yeah, that's my last action for today. I still have a couple of people I would like to thank. So let me start and be with me for some very last minutes. First of all, I would like to thank the audience for joining this summit, for spending, and some of them, several hours with us, listening to us, engaging, interacting with us. Hopefully we can stay in touch with as many as possible. So thanks for making this event a success. It wouldn't have been possible without your participation. Then, and I will really briefly mention them name by name, of course. Thank you very much for the presenters of today's sessions. So thank you to Paula Huerta, who really practices what she preaches and demonstrates that by her passionate presentation. To Hanyu Allinger, who suggests a smart way to boost the effectiveness of the European ETS. To Oliver Warwick, who states that technology is enabler, but sharing is key, in this case, data sharing. To Sasha Giglione, who so effectively links his business strategy to his personal mission, circularity and sustainability. To Alexandra Liebert, who provided a real-life and lively example of how greenwashing looks like and how to avoid it. To Ingmar Rentzhock, who makes the fact of time is running out the name of his organization and provides a great platform to engage many to boost real change. To Rainer Monet, who made an interesting pledge for integrating non-financial values into a complete company valuation. To Ian Robertson, who smartly pointed us to various funding options for sustainable SME, trying and thereby providing a crash course of corporate finance. And last but not least, to Martin Hiller, who shared some very convincing points with us why private companies could and should invest in sustainability. A long list, and I'm really proud to have all these great speakers at our event. And I'm sorry that I don't read all the participants or mainly the panelists who also provided excellent insights. But thank you, of course, to you as well. And last but not least, I would like to thank the sleepless Marcin Kielt, who together with his team of IT professionals, graphical designers, marketing experts, made this event a success. And last but not least, and this is really the last person I would like to thank you, wonderful Maria, for providing this great kind of hosting support and very nice introduction of all of us. Thank you to all of you. Bear with us, stay tuned, visit us again, and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.